2015 Chevy Express LT60. Was it the L96 engine? Came in with a complaint. This is the passenger cargo van, Chevy Express. So it had, passenger compartment. But anyways, the complaint on this one was the marker lights and the brake running lamps in the back were all inoperative, but all the other lights worked. Turn signals, headlights, lows and highs, backup lamps, and I believe there was no license plate lamp. So that was the complaint. Running, didn't matter. Pulled all the DTCs on it. There were none of that would lead us in the right direction. There was low voltage codes in multiple modules, but it had a new battery recently installed. You could tell just by looking at the battery that it was fairly new. Anyways, the first thing I wanted to do, I guess the purpose of this video is just going to be keeping it simple and using just basic logic to come up with a solution, I guess, would be my, I don't know, let's just use basic logic. It's not rocket science, right? Simple design, simple circuit. The problem wasn't opening the control wire to the park lamp relay. Why am I telling you the answer right away? Well, because if you're watching this video, I don't want you to sit through and get bored. I want you to just know that is what I found. I found the open in the harness under the driver's side carpet in a high traffic area where a lot of water, a lot of moisture, and a lot of movement happens, okay? But using a test light, just a simple incandescent test light with 160 milliamp draw, that's what I use. It's a Mac test light. That's what I use to diagnose this circuit. That's it. That's all I used, was just an incandescent test light. So the first thing I want to do is just pull up a quick wiring diagram before I touch, moving into this. Like, that's kind of the purpose of this video, is my thought process before I even touch the car. Okay, how I think. So before I even touch it, before I, outside of pulling the codes and outside of confirming the complaint, the first thing I'm doing here is going after a wiring diagram of the exterior lighting circuit. I'm going to apologize ahead of time because it might be difficult for you to see what I'm talking about, but that's why I gave you all the information on the vehicle ahead of time, so that you could pull up the wiring diagram if you have access to it, which, if you're working in a shop, you should have access to ProDemand at home on your phone. And if you don't, you need to learn how to start using your phone to access wiring diagrams. For those of you that don't work on cars professionally, what may be watching this video, I apologize. I'm doing the best I can, but it's the only reason I'm sharing this diagram is to explain my thought process before I even touch anything on the vehicle. And I'm using something simple as this. Why? Well, because it's simple, and I think simple things lead to big things. So understanding the minute helps us understand the major, right? The bigger picture. And we're all learning at different rates. So, some of you might still have questions on something as simple as a lighting circuit issue and finding a bad spot in the wire. So this hopefully will be helpful. Let's look here at this exterior light circuit. If you look, we're on the exterior lamps. I'm using ProDemand here. Yes, I use Identifix as well, but I just like ProDemand wiring diagrams, and in this case I used a ProDemand wiring diagram. So, free plug. Yes, I'm sharing a wiring diagram for one make, one model. Not a very big deal, guys. Not worried about it, because this isn't meant to give out free information as far as like how to diagnose everything in your lighting circuit. We're focusing in on just a simple diagnostic here. Passenger compartment fuse block. All right, let's take a look at this. Passenger compartment fuse block under under the driver's seat. Okay, that's where this is located. It's going to have all of our park lamp fuses That's also going to house our park lamps relay, okay? Now, the reason I'm here is because I always like to take something simple that isn't working and look at it. Now, the fact that I don't have any rear running lamps tells me that, you know, is it a burnt out bulb? Well, it's possible I have a burnt out bulb on both sides, but, you know, just I have no license plate lamp. I have no front marker lamps. I have no rear running lamps or marker lamps, okay? Or tail lamps, if you will. Look at the left rear here. Excuse me if I do this because my fingers sometimes touch the screen, but left tail / stop and turn signal lamp. You'll see 2 grounds coming off that. One going to the ground distribution system on another diagram, so we'd have to go there to find it, but the other one going for the center high mounted stop lamp, okay? They all share that same ground. You see that? G402. Sorry. So G402 is a shared ground for the left tail stop lamp and the high mount. And then if you look at the right tail stop lamp, we have G401. So they have different grounds, but again, if you remember, I said all the other lights work. So left tail / stop and turn signal lamp. So you'll see that other filament, that's the turn signal side of that bulb. Okay. Because this side is the ground, these 2 up here have to be power feeds. So the brown there, the brown and the yellow wire going into that stop lamp there are power feeds. The turn signal power feed will be a pulsed 12 volts, and the brown will be a constant 12 volts. Okay? I hope that makes sense. So if we follow this yellow up, you can see it goes through this passenger compartment fuse box. Then it comes up here, and we're not dealing with a cutaway. We're dealing with a passenger cargo van, so we have to follow that appropriately. And then if you look, it comes back over here to our BCM, okay, a yellow wire, where it says lamp turn signal lamp control pulsed power from the BCM. So the BCM is our flasher. There is no actual flasher anymore on most cars, right? Everything's controlled by the body module. We all know this. Body module is takes the inputs from the switches, and it outputs the controls. Okay, it's doing everything. Follow the brown feed up for the running lamp side of that bulb, and you can see it comes to the splice point, and it also powers up our license plate lamp, which our license plate lamp is using ground G401, which is a different ground from our left side tail lamp, but it's also a shared ground with the right side. So are we thinking we have a ground issue? No, I'm thinking I have a power issue. So I want to go up these brown wires, and I want to see where the power comes from, and we can see it comes from all these fuses, right? Now again, we're using passenger cargo van, so those are the only 2 outside. You know, this one's not in play because it's not an ambulance. This one over here is not in play because it's not a cutaway. But it doesn't matter. They all share the same power feed on the same leg of the the switch side of this the park lamps relay. Okay, on pin 87 there. If we go to that switch side leg, pin 30 there, and pin 85 on the control side of that relay, those are going to be hot feeds coming from this mega fuse, this 125 amp mega fuse from the underhood fuse box on the passenger side, which is a hot at all times fuse. All right, so I want to check powers here. I'm going to go to these fuses first with my test light hooked to battery negative, and you know, obviously I'm not going to have power on these fuses unless this park lamps relay is energized. Okay, and it has to have a control side, which we can see here is this dark blue wire. That's our control side coming from going to the BCM. So the BCM is the control side, and the BCM will switch the ground, creating the magnetic field in the relay to close the switch and send power out to these fuses. Okay, when would that happen? Well, that would happen anytime the BCM receives an input that you want park lamps or headlamps or whatever's going to power up your headlights, so to speak, your switch input to the BCM, because it's an input, would say, hey, BCM, please turn on this relay and energize what I'm giving you. And that's what we're worried about here. So if I go to these fuses and I have no power with the key or with the headlight switch in the on position, or the marker lamp switch, doesn't matter, I'm immediately going to this relay, and I'm going to check my 2 power feeds and make sure they're there, and they are. Then I'm going to check my control side and see if my control side is actually there. Well, how do I do that? Well, one way of doing it is plug in the relay, hook your battery, or hook your test light to battery positive, and just touch on pin 86 there on the dark blue side of that relay. Command it on and see if you get the switch ground from the BCM. If you're not getting the lit test light when you do that, then you know your problem is towards the BCM. Okay? It could be in the box though too, because you got to remember, we're at the relay side. We're not at the connector side where the blue wire comes in on the back side of that power distribution box. So we could, at this point, if we're not getting that control, all right, we could do a bypass test real quick by just taking our test light, hooking it to battery negative, and just being the BCM and giving that relay on pin 86 its switch ground, and see if we can close that relay and provide power out to all them lights. So we go ahead and do that, and of course it works. So I'm not worried about the relay, I'm not worried about the lights, I'm not worried about the wiring out to the lights. Now I'm worried about I'm not getting a switch ground from that BCM. Straightforward, right? Well, what's easier, pulling up the fuse box under the driver's seat there and checking where that blue wire comes in, because I'm going to have to get a pin out, find it, right? Or just going to the BCM, which is under the passenger knee bolster, basically. A couple 10 mil screws, go find connector X5, pin 24, that dark blue wire, a control wire from the BCM, pierce in right next to, a few inches back away from the connector, so I can fix my little pierce hole, or back probe in, whatever's easier. In this case, piercing in was a lot easier. Small pinhole, and check to see if the BCM is switching to ground that at that point with our test light hooked to battery positive, right? And it lights the test light, so that tells me we have control. Now I can use a scan tool to command that on through bidirectional control under functional tests under the BCM, or I can just use the switch, because the nice thing about using the light switch is then it tells you that the BCM is getting the input and it is trying to control that relay. That tells us a lot. That tells us our inputs are good. That tells us our output's good at the BCM. That tells us our problems from the BCM to the fuse box in that wire. So we have an open, okay, somewhere. Next place we have to go, the next easiest place to go, because this harness runs behind the dash, which I'm not worried about, because unless the dash was removed at some point, again, only 135,000 miles on the vehicle. I'm looking at where this harness might run, and I know from experience that they run under the floor on the driver's side, so that's where I'm already thinking in my mind I'm going to find my issue. But nevertheless, I pull up the fuse box, easy to do, find this blue wire, do my same checks here that I did at the BCM. Okay, am I getting my switch ground when I'm giving it the input? Because I know I am at the BCM, but I want to see now if I'm getting it on the bottom side of the box. I don't see any corrosion when I bring it up, and I'm not getting the control. So that tells me that my problem is this in between here, in between the fuse box and the BCM. But I want to make sure that I can command that relay on the back side of the box to confirm circuit integrity inside the box all the way out to the lights. Okay, all I got to do, again, it's a switch power, or a switch ground rather, to control this relay. So if I give a ground to that spot where that blue wire comes in on that connector to the back side of that box, with my test light, I'm going to command that relay shut. Could I use a straight jumper wire to ground? Yes, you could. But be careful when you do that, because you better know what the circuit design is so you don't cook anything, okay? I use my test light. It's safer that way. That way if I'm wrong and I'm hooked to, you know, the wrong polarity for something, I don't have to worry about cooking anything. So just keep that in mind. But nevertheless, I do that. I'm able to command the relay. I can hear it click. I see have my buddy check. Yep, lights are on. All right, no problem. Boom, we're done right there. We know we got an open in the wire without a doubt. Go to the high traffic area, pull up the carpet, and what do I see? I see the fancy Tesla tape, you know, the good tape from the factory. There's a spot in the main harness coming from the box where I would expect that blue wire to be running up under the dash, where your driver's feet sit, right? I see fresh electrical tape, which was wrapped up fairly well. There was one spot where they missed some of the wiring when they unwrapped the factory harness. And that's where I just, doing a visual, I just noticed a little bit of green powder. And I thought, okay, well, this would be the most common spot, I would think. Try doing a wiggle test. It doesn't matter. We got an open. So I'm automatically unwrapping the harness at this point. I unwrap it and I find a lot of powder, a lot of crusties. And I'm thinking that this thing had a trailer gain installed, an aftermarket trailer gainer on it. So I'm thinking maybe somebody was down in theirs. Who knows? They had cut into the harness and maybe nicked the wire insulation, and it was enough to allow the water and the moisture to get in and destroy that blue wire, which as soon as I found the blue wires with in that harness, I just started tugging and then it broke and we were done. So not too complicated, nothing too crazy here. Strip back both sides of this wire. I can take a jumper and just jumper it and see if everything works. I think the route I took is I just stripped both sides of the wire and use my test light to make sure that, okay, yep, control is here when from the BCM. The control's on this side of the harness, so I know everything from here to the BCM is good. And then just do the bidirection or, the bypass test using my test light as ground on the control side and, see if I can light up the lights, and sure enough I can. So we're done right there. It needs, we know everything's good outside of this bad spot in the wire. Pretty straightforward, right? Nothing too complicated, and that's just it. I didn't want to share anything too complicated. Some of you might think this is overkill for this. That's why I told you what was wrong in the beginning. And this is mainly for somebody who might be learning how to approach something. Just remember, when you look at an electrical problem, I don't care what it is, this is just my personal experience. Look at it a little closer and get a game plan in your head before you just start going after it. Understand and really take the time to kind of get a concept in your head of how it's working. So that way when you go out there, you have a plan of attack. It'll save you a lot of time in the long run too. And a lot of times you can pretty much have them diagnosed right in your head when there's something simple as this. This took me longer to film than it took me to diagnose. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support. If you have any questions, drop them down. I hope you enjoyed this video. If not, no big deal. Thanks for subscribing, and thanks for the feedback. I like you guys' feedback. So if you have any feedback for this one, please share it. But just take this as me just sharing something that I ran into. It was simple, and hopefully somebody finds it helpful. Anyways, thanks for watching.